for me, I just decided like, okay, I can go on panels and stuff, but I can't like sit in front of a screen and just like talk for like to like an empty chat for like for like 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever. So how was that experience as you like started growing?
Started growing. Like I'm a huge believer of universal basic income, Medicare for all, and basically like a lot of programs that would help alleviate people from their problems of poverty, and get them to focus on things like maybe their own education, their own development, and how can they grow themselves as a person and become a functioning member of society, instead of thinking about like, oh, well, it's just because they made different decisions.
Right.
I applied to Harvard, didn't get in.
Yeah.
Shoot your
Right.
shot. You got it. You
Yeah,
got
I
it.
mean, I
Uh-huh.
applied to Stanford, didn't get in, so
If I had to teach a humanities class, I would teach philosophy and anime. I was not like you in that I was like really smart or one of the smartest people in my class. Even in high school, I was pretty mediocre.
Mhm.
Um, and so then one could actually say is that like me thinking about myself like so high and mighty in comparison to other people is actually unjust. Like there's no evidence behind it. So in a way, I was actually just like a straight up narcissist. Breaks are very important, and that's the thing about content creation that I think I'm getting right, in that I'm thinking about it as a marathon instead of a sprint. And I just think Europe is cringe. And most of the time is people will outright reject you,
Mhm.
because they will continue to believe that they're right,
Right.
and that like I have it all wrong. All the evidence that I do bring about is flawed, or
Mhm.
it does not consider something that they hypothetically think about.
Or it's just fake.
So
If you like ask someone out and if it's the result of like this like just this passionate like action which is just driven by like pure love or whatever, as opposed to like a relatively carefully thought out decision. Obviously I think people kind of gravitate towards one as a lot more romantic, a lot more
yeah,
I guess attractive in that sense, in that
for
case.
sure.
And yeah.
Um, we were on the bus and my teacher pointed out to the class that, hey, there's this rock, and historically under this rock uh, has been living there homeless people,
Hmm.
and that's why the rock is named this way. And for most people, it's like it's a bit of trivia. It's
Right.
nice to know. But then for me, I was like, what the fuck? People were living under this rock?
Basically when I was growing up I was essentially just called a genius throughout my childhood. This feels like showing off now, but like
Oh, no, 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 no.
yeah.
Dude, this happens to so many people.
Yeah. Think of how to say this without being like I don't mean this in like a
We're not
like
being
rude.
condescending, by the way. We're not being rude.
No, like I know what I'm about to say. It's gonna sound rude.
Oh,
um,
continue.
okay.
Yeah, college has really humbled me, and I've also like had to think to myself like, hey, what is actually the best way to approach things? Another thing that's helped me is marijuana.
Okay. Hi. I'm Iris, and I have JChao here with me. Um, so I'll just give us quick rundown of what we're exactly doing. So this is another episode of Humans of Online Politics, an interview series where we talk to different people about their experiences, how those experiences contributed to their values, and how they interact with those values on Twitch or whatever other online site they're using. So with that, I guess we should just get started. So yeah, how's it going?
I'm doing okay. It's a Saturday,
Mhm.
finally the weekend,
Yeah.
and had a busy week, but just relaxing. Did a little bit of shopping, a little bit of food shopping. It was
Mhm.
nice.
Cool.
How about you?
It was good. Yeah. Same as you. Weekend. Got a bit busy over this weekend, but overall not too bad. Um, but yeah. So normally when I do these interviews, I start with just asking about like how old are you, where were you born, just basic data. Uh, so yeah.
Yeah, so I'm right now 24.
Mhm.
It's kind of funny. Uh, I've kind of been losing track of my age a little bit. Maybe it's a little bit too early for that to happen. And I was born in the United States, specifically New York State, and
Mhm.
even more specific, Long Island,
Oh,
or
cool.
actually Queens. I was born in Queens, and then I moved to Long Island.
Right. Cool. I was born in New Jersey, so in the area, I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
we're pretty
but yeah.
close.
But yeah, so have you been there the rest of your life, or have you moved around since then?
The only time I've really moved around was for college.
Mm,
I went to SUNY Geneseo, so that's Western New York. It's like maybe a 6 to 8 hour drive, depending on the traffic from where I live.
mm.
And then you also have to account for New York City traffic. And then the farthest I've been from home was in Uganda. I did a study abroad internship there for 8 weeks.
Oh, how was that?
It was an experience. I got sick 4 times, so that's an average of every 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And it was all food poisoning related. I was given ample warnings to be very careful about what I consume, whether it be water, drinks, food, but it, to
Some
say I
stuff
was
slipped through.
reckless. Yeah.
I see. Yeah. So was it just like I guess that was just a study abroad semester, right? Um, so I
It was
could,
over the summer.
I see. Cool. Um,
And what I did there was it was an internship with an NGO. And so we actually did field work, and we were actually taught how to work with NGOs, how to do planning, how do we execute a project. And the project was related of uplifting a group of people. So it was actual hand-to-hand direct contact with trying to help people.
yeah, that's nice. Yeah. Um, my school used to have this thing. This was in high school though, but my school used to have this thing called CAS. I think it's part of the IB syllabus or something. But basically, like it's community action service. So the service part was just they took us out and had us like work with different NGOs and stuff and like do different like random things. Right at that time, obviously, since it was forced, it was kind of like, oh, this is sort of like BS. But I think like I feel like doing like service actions like that, or service work like that, it can often be like I think it can be pretty fulfilling. Um, what kind of motivated you to try that sort of thing out?
So, to give a little bit of context, I did that internship between my sophomore year and junior year.
Mhm.
And before junior year, I had to decide on a track for my major. In
Mhm.
international relations, you could have picked three paths. One was developing world, second, war and peace, and the third was global economy.
Right.
And I was stuck between developing world and war and peace.
Mhm.
And I ended up deciding on developing world because I thought that fit more with my passion and what I wanted to do in the future. And it was a requirement for my major in order to graduate, in order to study abroad. And most of my school's study abroad programs were in Europe.
Right.
And I'm not a Europe guy. I didn't study Europe. I had enough of Europe in high school because world history was very Eurocentric,
Mhm.
and I just think Europe is cringe. And I also think Europe is just way too similar to the United States. I
Right.
wanted to explore something that was out of my comfort zone, as well as something that was like a bit niche. And one of the more unique study abroad programs was this Uganda program.
Mhm.
And at first, I was on the fence
Right.
because reasons. But when I went to the orientation, there was like uh, a time in which people were introducing the study abroad programs, and we actually got to talk to somebody who was in that program before.
Right.
And after that, I was just hooked. And trying to convince my family that it was safe and I was going to be okay and I wasn't going to die was really difficult. Um,
Right.
but those were some of my motivations for going to Uganda before.
Out of all of the people I've met who I've talked to about college and stuff, I think I've only met like one person who was interested in international relations. Um,
Yeah.
So like, how did that interest spark? Did you like travel a lot, or like what? Where did that come from?
Oh, I traveled very little when I was a kid,
Mm,
growing up. It's actually funny because my family did a lot of traveling before I was born.
right,
And even when I was born, when they were traveling, I was too small. I was like a baby, so they
right,
just left me home. So
mm,
I didn't do a lot of traveling myself. But what really got me interested in international relations was first me getting interested in politics.
mm,
Because at some point in middle school, I had this idea of what I wanted to do in when I grew up.
mhm,
When people ask you what do you want to do when you're kindergarten, it's like, okay, I want to be a superhero, I want to be an
yeah,
astronaut, I want to be president of the United States, right?
right,
Um, I had this weird thing of like in middle school, oh, I want to be a politician.
hmm,
And it's because I thought to myself, what is the one way to help people? Well, I thought about, well, through government, because it's the government that's going to be uh, dealing with the finances, the money, where does it go to, what are the programs, and all that stuff. And then in high school, it all changed when I took this one class called human geography.
right,
And what it did was, it was a great class. I loved it, very enlightening.
mhm,
But what it did was it basically black pilled me on all the problems of the world
mhm,
because it threw at me there are population problems, there are food problems, there are development problems, there's agriculture problems, there's all these problems all around the world that, and I'm just like, okay, it's if I'm gonna be doing anything in which is going to really satisfy what I want to do in life, which is to help people, then the best thing to do would be on the international scale.
mm,
And so then it was from that point on freshman year that I was on track. I stayed committed to wanting to study international relations.
right. That's I find that interesting because for me, like my path through like figuring out what I want to do so far has been like there's been like a lot of twists and turns. And you know, I thought I was like kind of confused, I wasn't sure and whatnot. But for you, it seems like you kind of had this idea of like I want to help people from even all the way back in middle school. Where do you think that like came from?
I think it came from my family, in which they actually tell me that I got it wrong. I got a misunderstanding. It was because growing up, one of the constant things that I heard from my parents was like their struggles and how they had to pay taxes and and then I thought to myself, how can I help? Well, my parents,
Right,
and then it then connected to, well, what I can do to help my parents could also help other people.
right. I
And then
see.
they would tell me, no, they were exaggerating. We didn't actually mean it. Like everybody complains about these things.
Right.
But it's because of that I am the way that I am now.
I see. Yeah. Like if I think about kind of the sort of stuff my parents talked about around me and things like that when I was relatively young. I don't remember that much, but like, um, it's I don't know. I always got the sense that it was very much like take the kids out of the room for the adult talk sort of thing, right?
Hmm.
Um, so for you, it seems like that wasn't really the case, and that actually influenced how you looked at the world to a certain extent, right? Um, so like,
Yeah.
yeah. So I guess could you elaborate on how that was, or
Man, I don't want to like make it sound like I'm running off of like my high horse, but I genuinely do think that I grew up pretty differently than the other kids
Mhm.
in that like they were very focused on each other. They were
Right?
very focused on like maybe in the moment. I I feel like I've developed like self-reflection and critical thinking very early on
Mhm.
to the point where I would look at something, say like for example, on like one of my school trips. Um we were on the bus and my teacher pointed out to the class that hey, there's this rock and historically under this rock uh has been living there homeless people
Mhm.
and that's why the rock is named this way. And for most people, it's like it's a bit of trivia. It's
Right?
nice to know. But then for me, I was like, what the fuck? People were living under this rock?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, like how could this happen? And
Right.
then it's like those kinds of things that I would think about, I would apply to the world, and it probably also has something to do with my need to solve problems.
Mhm.
In that, if I think there is an issue, I
Right.
have this urge to want to get to a solution in order to make that problem go away. Because if the world has problems, then it's not perfect. And maybe I'm a little bit of a perfectionist and I want to pursue that.
Is it the like so I'm assuming at this point you've probably done enough work to like kind of realize like is it like okay, is it the action which you find enjoyable, or is it like the consequence? Like do you uh does that kind of make sense? Or like is it
I
the
think it's
action
both.
of solving? Okay. Uh
I don't know if I need to elaborate on that. If I was just focused on the consequence, but like I didn't enjoy actually doing the work in order to get to that consequence, that would also be a pretty unfulfilling life. It would also it would almost feel like I would have to sacrifice like so much energy and patience in order to get something that actually does satisfy me. But for me, it's actually really nice that both of them have lined up. Is that like me doing the work as well as me looking at some sort of an outcome? They've both aligned, and that's probably what makes me like very driven.
that's nice. Yeah. Um yeah, I think sometimes yeah, I guess sometimes we just get into those like fortunate situations where you know I want to accomplish something and I also enjoy doing whatever it is to
Yeah.
accomplish it. Um,
hmm
but
And I
yeah,
want to do point out that I do
mm,
have my own roadblocks,
mm,
and I do have my own challenges that does prevent me from getting to that zone. For
mm,
example, I'm a huge procrastinator,
right,
so I put off a lot of stuff.
mm, yeah, yeah. I think like yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting connection, like that. I think like I don't think this is the case for all procrastinators, but I know that like for me, it's like a lot of the times I kind of procrastinate because I'm not really in the perfect state at the moment to do the work, right? So I can't do like perfect work. And as you said, you're a little bit of a perfectionist, right? Are those like connected for you in any way, or is it like just two distinct things?
No, I do think they are connected. Um, I do remember reading something, and I really related to this, that a lot of perfectionists are procrastinators because the reason why they procrastinate is because they believe that if they were to do the work at that moment, they couldn't do the best job that they actually can.
Mhm.
So they keep on putting it off until they actually feel like they could do the best work because, well, they're a perfectionist. It's like if I had to choose, should I do the work now and have it be a shitty job, or can I do the work later and have it be a good job? I would choose the latter. I would
Mhm.
choose to wait and do the better job. But then what that ends up happening is I keep on choosing the second choice over and over and over again. And
Right,
I just end up not doing the thing until there's a deadline and I have to,
right.
no matter what.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. I think I see where you're coming from there. Um, but yeah, so I guess kind of moving a little bit forward through like the timeline, I guess. We talked a little bit about how like in your childhood, you kind of you heard that you know your parents and other people were like dealing with these problems, and that kind of gave you a lot more of a focus on these sort of broader issues as opposed to like just you know your one-on-one interactions or whatever. Um, so and it seems like you kind of felt like pretty distinct from your peers, right? So how did that kind of influence you as you kind of like entered your teenage years after like as middle school ended and stuff?
After it entered my teenage years, uh, how did that influence me? This is a deep question.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate more though? Like be more
Uh
specific if you can.
yeah, so one okay. Obviously, teenage years are a time of like a lot of turmoil for a lot of people, right? Oh, and a large lot of change, right? And it seems like, I don't know if you had this idea back then, but like it seems like there was some distinction between you and your peers, which makes it difficult to relate and communicate as easily, right?
Yeah.
So like I know that when I entered my teenage years, I was like, I had friends, but there was also like I felt like a gap, right? In my case, I don't think it was like actually there; it was just more like imagined. But
Hmm.
so that hindered my ability to kind of develop and communicate and like deal with my emotional problems and whatnot. So I was just curious how that was for you, right? Did you have an
Yeah,
easy time
I
of
definitely do feel
communicating?
that.
Yeah. Mhm.
I feel like I had an easy time communicating, but I had a hard time making connections, and I had a hard time sustaining relationships. Nor did I have. I also had a hard time getting people to feel like they could actually be friends with me, even if I wanted to be friends with them. Um, I definitely felt like what you said. There was a gap between me and a lot of people. Did I have friends? Yes. Did I have a good time? Yeah, it was amazing. Um, but probably the one thing that makes me feel like I was a lot different than other people was a lot of people felt like how do I describe it? That they were running on emotions
Mhm.
rather than running on rationality.
Right.
And um sometimes it would kind of piss me off
Mhm.
uh and make me feel like really intense in that it would cause more problems and more issues. And as I said before, I wanted to solve problems. And if
Right.
I see somebody who is just running on pure emotions and making things worse, then I'm going to look at that person and be like, "You're contributing to this problem. I do not like you. Please go away or something."
Right.
Um, and that would actually make me kind of like a bad person, like a bad guy. Like I have
Like
low empathy or
right.
low patience.
Mhm.
Um, and that actually is a problem to this day.
Right.
I'm a lot better right now.
That's good.
Um, yeah, college has really humbled me, and I've also like had to think to myself like, hey, what is actually the best way to approach things? Another thing that's helped me is marijuana. That's also really like toned me down.
Cool.
Mhm. But yeah, it's like it often feels like I just think really differently than other people,
Mm.
and how I approach like problem solving just does not work with other people. They are like allergic to it. It's like oil and water.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think I kind of see what you mean. So like when you say like running on pure emotion or whatnot, like so the way that I think about people and their emotions and stuff is like obviously everybody with very few exceptions have like pretty similar emotional capacity and like pretty similar emotions for the most part, right? So like I guess um so when you say like people are like running purely on emotion, do you mean like they're very impulsive and don't really process their emotions properly and just express it onto the world?
Well, um, that yes, like when people are really angry
Mm.
and there might be like some drama going on that has to deal with other people, and like they're really spite driven and they just want to get back at this person, like they're just really like revenge driven, and that's one example. Another example is when people look at outcomes, like desirable outcomes, as emotional, like, oh, if I did this thing I would be happy,
Mm.
instead of actually looking at what are the outcomes of a decision and then taking away from that, well, which one is actually better.
Right.
So, for example, maybe a guy wants to pursue another person, like a girl,
Mhm.
and the reason why they do so is because they like get euphoric when doing so.
Mm.
They kind of like get this high of I'm chasing somebody, I'm gonna get this person under me and whatnot. But then my question would be, do you actually like this person?
Mm,
And they're like, no. It's like,
right.
okay, so you're just doing it for like self satisfaction, for like this emotion. You're not actually doing this for, in my opinion, any good reason.
Right.
There's actually like a lack of a reason.
Right. I see. Um, and I guess by contrast, like if you feel like a really strong emotion or something, how do you kind of, or not necessarily a strong emotion, but like if you feel like some emotion like that, how do you kind of deal with it or manage it?
Yeah, I often don't make decisions when I am emotional. So like if I'm like really really angry, I'll refrain myself from making any sort of decisions because it's going to influence my decision making.
Right.
This is to say that I'm not a robot.
Mm,
I do have emotions. I
yeah.
do cry, I do get angry, I do get happy. Uh the way that I use emotions isn't really to drive me, but it's a way for me to express myself.
Mm,
So if I'm feeling sad, I'll tell you that I'm sad and I'll be sad,
mm,
but I'm not going to like do something because I am sad.
right.
Or I'll try not to do that, if anything.
I
And the
see.
same
Yeah.
thing is for other emotions.
Yeah. Yeah. That actually, that reminds me of something I heard when I was talking with someone else about like this was specifically about parenting, but I think it's applicable kind of. But the idea was that like parents are obviously going to be worried about their kids, right? That's natural. However, they shouldn't necessarily take out that worry on the kids by being controlling and things like that, right? Um, and instead, they should come up with like be able to process the emotions healthily and have healthy outputs for it, right? And that kind of sounds like what you do in general, right? Like if you have an emotion, you process it and you don't and you try to like output it only in like healthy ways and not like have it influence your decisions and things like that.
Yeah, and speaking of parents, maybe this is something that I saw from them doing it, is that like every single time they were making a decision based on, I would say, emotional impulses,
Mhm.
it turns out usually to be bad,
Mhm.
to a bad outcome in which they eventually regret. And even I have my own experiences of, I can't really name you one specifically, but for sure, I have made decisions based off emotional impulses in which I would later then regret and be like,
Right.
God, I'm so dumb. Like, why did I do that? Like, why didn't I think about this more?
Mhm. Right. Um, and I guess like when you regret those things, like have you improved in that regard, or like how have you changed in dealing with your emotions that way? Um, I assume to try to reduce that.
Yeah, they kind of become cautionary tales
Mhm.
and it's been internalized.
Right.
And the hope is that if I do come up into the same situation, or even like in a different situation but in very similar ways, uh the hope is that I'll think about those cautionary tales and then
Mhm.
have that kind of pull me back, tell me to take 2 steps back, actually think through this. This is really important. Don't fuck this up, and approach. Yeah,
Right. I see. Um, yeah, I can also see how that might make you feel a bit more distant from other people because like just as an example, um like if you like ask someone out and if it's the result of like this like just this passionate action which is just driven by like pure love or whatever, as opposed to like a relatively carefully thought out decision. Obviously I think people kind of gravitate towards one as a lot more romantic, a lot more
yeah,
I guess attractive in that sense in that
for
case.
sure.
Yeah. So so you said that like college kind of really changed how you viewed other people, in terms of this like emotional rational sort of spectrum, I guess. So like I guess before we get into how it changed, like how did you view them, view other people before? Just kind of, oh, they're all like sort of very emotional, or like what was the?
Oh, I kind of had a god complex when I was small. Yeah,
Let's
I
see.
didn't think I was actually God, but
Mhm.
I was definitely like really condescending. I felt like I was a know-it-all. I felt like I knew everything and that I could like do anything.
Mhm.
Um, it wasn't that like I was a rebellious person,
Mhm.
but it was more so, oh, whatever you could do, I could probably do it better. If
Right.
I like really put my time to it. Like I felt like I was that skilled person. I could do everything.
Mhm.
Um, so that was me back then. And that's kind of how I viewed other people. And uh and then yeah, I think it was in college that I really started to take two steps back and it was like, yeah, get off your fucking high horse, okay? You little shitter.
Right. And like how did that process kind of happen? Did you just like, fail at some things and then eventually change, or like did you talk to some people, or like what was the kind of path there?
It was a combination of things. So one is that college was actually really difficult. A lot. It was a different beast than high school. It
Right.
was my first semester freshman year. I got a GPA that was lower than 3. That
Okay.
was the first time I ever got a GPA lower than 3,
Hmm.
and so that really kicked my ass, and
Right.
really got me to think otherwise. Hey, how can I turn things around? And so then there was the challenge presented to me.
Hmm.
And then the second thing was people,
Right.
in that the people who I surrounded myself also challenged me.
Hmm.
And they also gave me more perspectives to think about. And I have to credit one person who is my ex girlfriend,
Right.
who really got me to uh, really think about changing some of my ways, because she was basically like, yo, you're an asshole sometimes. Like, what the fuck is up with that? And then I'd
Right.
be like, well, it's because like I feel this way, or like I think this is my right, or like I think this is just and whatnot. And then she would be like, well, hold on. Are you actually solving anything by doing these things? And then
Mhm.
I'll think to myself, wait, I'm actually not. So then a
Right.
lot of the times what ends up happening is that like even within me, I have a clashing of priorities.
Mhm.
And as I said before, I have like those emotional impulses and I make those emotional decisions. And basically what people around me have done is they've taken those. It's not like they're taking advantage of me, nor like they actually know me. Maybe they do
Right.
know me and that's why they're doing so.
Mhm.
Um, but they will approach how I usually would
Right.
with me, and that would basically make me actually think about, hold on a second, yeah, you are right. um so basically maybe it was a combination of one, uh I have been challenged. Two, because of that challenge I know that I'm wrong, I don't have everything right.
Mhm.
And three, those answers, the answers to those wrong things that I've been doing, could actually come from other people. And it's been great so far. I still feel like I'm a know-it-all.
Right.
But I mean, who doesn't?
Yeah. Yeah. I see. Yeah. I think I see where you're coming from. Um. Yeah. I can definitely relate to that. I mean, for me, like, I don't want to go off too long about this, but like, for me, like, basically, when I was growing up, I was essentially just called a genius throughout my childhood. This feels like showing off now, but like,
Oh, no, 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 no.
yeah.
Dude, this happens to so many people.
Yeah. But yeah, so basically, my batch, my grade or whatever, was considered like the start batch, and I was like the smartest out of them, right? That was the sort of perception, right? And it took like some, it's taken some time to kind of like start, essentially just try to like stop thinking in terms of like, okay, am I smarter than this person or not, right? Um,
Hmm.
because like one thing I kind of realized so far is that like intelligence is kind of overrated. Like it's good, obviously, but like if you're just intelligent and you don't have any like good work ethic or anything like that, then you're not
Yeah.
going to be able to, accomplish much, right? But yeah, so I can definitely, I think I kind of express those same emotions differently throughout my life. But I think like probably similar emotions were there. Um, for me,
Yeah,
it, yeah, go ahead.
what's actually really funny is I was not like you in that I was like really smart or one of the smartest people in my class. Even in high school, I was pretty mediocre.
Mm.
Um, and so then one could actually say is that like me thinking about myself like so high and mighty in comparison to other people is actually unjust. Like there's no evidence behind it.
Mm.
So in a way, I was actually just like a straight up narcissist for
Right.
no good reason.
Mm.
Um, but I felt like probably the reason why I did feel that way is because of what I said before, in that like I didn't deal with like the drama as much as other people. I didn't like think as emotional as like other people.
Mm.
In a way, I basically said like I basically convinced myself I had different skills than other people,
Right.
and that's what sets me apart, and those skills are actually what's most important. So like other people, they could be getting these awards in music or in sciences and in maths, and they could be getting all these like 4.0 gpas, these high high SAT scores.
Mm.
I did, to me, I was like, I'm mediocre in those things. um Above average, how about that? Okay, so
Right.
give myself some credit.
Yeah.
Don't talk down on yourself so much, okay? So like I was above average in those things, but I felt like I made it up in other regards.
Mm. I see. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think yeah, I think one of the biggest things for me was just seeing other people perform better than me in some regard and questioning why. Like, okay, like I'm relatively confident that this person isn't like has the same processing power or whatever as me, I guess. But so why did they like beat me? And that kind of helped me start to devalue like the things I was good at a bit more and recognize like those other things are also valuable. Um, but yeah, um, I guess like so I guess okay, you kind of went through this journey in college and you started like being able to look at things more humbly, being like, able to respect other people's knowledge and things like that a bit more. Um, so like I guess you said you're 24 now. So like, what's kind of happened so far out of college? Must have been like a couple of years, right?
Yeah, it's been almost 2 years.
Mhm.
Uh, Late May is gonna mark 2 years since I've graduated from college,
Well,
and I graduated in 2020,
right.
and that's when COVID started to kick in. I actually couldn't complete my senior year in college. This was very sad for me
Mm.
because I had so much fun senior year. Um, I I I had to leave the campus early
Mm.
because my college administration basically just like, yeah, everybody's getting kicked out
Mm.
because of COVID, and we don't want to deal with it.
Right.
Um, so having to like deal with remote classes, having to be away from friends, and not having to like complete our year really, and we missed graduation even though I didn't care about graduation. Other people really cared about graduation,
Right.
and uh, my college was basically like, yeah, we're gonna eventually do a graduation for your
Mm.
class, and what ended up happening was they just completely gave up.
Mm.
So class of 2021 got a graduation,
Mm.
but 2020 we got no graduation.
I see.
Uh, so what I could say is life after college has been scuffed, and I do want to say that COVID is responsible for that.
Mhm.
In terms of it being a really tough job market,
Right.
there being like really high unemployment and just like this whole mess with the economy.
Right.
Um, and like even to this day, it still affects us because like people are still getting sick
Mhm.
and whatnot. Um, so really, what I've been doing ever since is, in a way, like kind of scuffed and kind of disappointing in that I've been staying home, I've
Right.
been working part time, and I've also been putting time into content creation. So I stream on Twitch, I make YouTube videos,
Right.
and I've been doing that. The plan was to do that for 1 whole year
Mhm.
to see if it takes off anywhere after
Right.
college. I plan on taking a gap year.
Right.
Um, but there were other things as well. So straight out of college, my grandma started to feel not well.
I see.
And so uh instead of like me trying to move out, find a job and whatnot, I stayed home with my mom in order to take care of my grandma.
Right.
And for a good year we did that until she passed.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
And yeah, she, she was old. She lived well. Very
Right.
good life. Very comfortable life.
That's good.
Um so and I felt like it was a very fulfilling life, but I'm the grandson. I feel even though I was like really close to my grandma,
Hmm.
uh I didn't feel like as connected to her as like say other members of my family.
Right.
And then the year after that, which is basically from that point to now,
Hmm.
I've been working at this part-time job and continuing to do this content creation thing to see where it goes.
Right.
Which in a way have has kind of conflicted. It's been really conflicting with what I wanted to do in like when I was thinking about high school and middle school. It's because like content creation is like the fucking dream,
Hmm.
where you got to play video games, you get to do stuff that is like fun and it's on your own time. You're your own boss, and
Right.
you get to like basically do what you want to pursue.
Right.
So that's like another thing is that like in a way maybe my my hobby passions has been conflicting with maybe like my professional passions.
Hmm.
And right now I'm like really invested in my hobby passions to see where that goes.
Right. I see. Yeah. Um. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think to me at least, it sounds like you're doing a decent amount. You have this part-time job, and you have this obviously you're doing all the content creation stuff, and I know content creation can take some time. I'm like too lazy with this. I feel this video will probably get uploaded like at least like a week from now, just because like yeah, I'm like terrible with that stuff. But yeah, so yeah, I guess you've so you've basically been interacting, or you've been I guess like interacting as a content creator on Twitch for I guess about a year, a little over a year maybe now.
Hmm.
So how has that experience been so far?
Well, I do want to clarify. Do you mean political Twitch or just Twitch in general?
Political Twitch.
Yeah, political Twitch. I knew about political Twitch during college.
Mhm.
I remember actually watching Dylan Burns when he
Mm.
was like a 20 viewer Andy, like a 10 viewer Andy when I was maybe like a junior or a senior in college.
Cool.
Uh, and then I started to really get into it once I graduated.
Mhm.
Starting to like go on panels, talking to other people about like what I studied and how it could be helpful, like trying to bring in like the intelligent takes,
Right.
or like actually like tell people it's like, hey, whatever you're trying to do actually has flaws, here's why.
Mhm.
And the whole idea is I'm trying to move you in a direction that will actually work,
Right.
that would actually get you to accomplish your goals.
Mhm.
Um, that's really roses and sunshine because that's not how that works.
Right.
What I've learned most of the time is people will outright reject you
Mhm.
because they will continue to believe that they're right,
Right.
and that like I have it all wrong. All the evidence that I do bring about is flawed, or
Mhm.
it does not consider something that they hypothetically think about.
Or it's just fake.
So yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
Mhm. I see. Um, yeah, I mean, I think I feel like a lot of people once they've come onto Twitch, they find it a little bit like, or at least on political Twitch, they find it a little bit disappointing. But I mean, so I guess maybe just to go back and go through the other branch. So I don't know that much about your content, but you also do like online just like regular Twitch stuff. Is that the case?
Yeah, so sometimes I'll be reacting to something, I'll be talking about pop culture, or I'll
Mm,
be playing a video game. That's not like my main content,
mhm.
but it's stuff that I still do because I think it's good to take breaks
Right.
from talking about politics, and I do think it's also good for my audience, my community, and other people to come by and be like, "Hey, uh, we're just gonna be mellow now
Mm,
and chill until we actually get serious." Because sometimes I talk about like really heavy stuff,
right.
and even for me, I need a recharge.
Yeah.
Despite having studied politics for 4 years straight, um, and which kind of makes me feel like I'm a bit more thick-skinned
Mm,
than other people in that like I could be like reading a paper about war and there could be like casualty numbers and all this like gruesome stuff and I would just like continue reading for knowledge sake.
right.
Um but even for me, in order to actually continue to be sustainable,
Right.
breaks are very important. And that's the thing about content creation that I think I'm getting right in that I'm thinking about it as a marathon
Mhm.
instead of a sprint.
That's
I'm
good.
not
Yeah.
trying to like rush myself and the people out there who are like streaming 5 times a week, 6 hours a day and doing the same thing over and over again. Content, drama, politics, news. Very commendable.
Mm,
Okay. I wish I had that energy.
right.
But uh, I sum it up to like me being an introvert, me needing to have to recharge. I
Right.
have to do other things. Um so like my schedule right now is Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday.
Mhm.
So I have a 2 day gap and 2 1 day gaps in
Mm,
between those streams. So
right.
I'm not streaming as much as other people,
Mm,
but that's because if I were to stream every day, and sometimes there are times in which I stream back to back, day by day, and
right.
it is just I wanna I wanna knock myself out. I'm just not into it as much. So also for the sake of the stream, it's good to take breaks.
I see. Um, yeah, I think yeah, I think for me as well, like so far my content creation thing has just been a lot of like different stuff, like random stuff. Basically. Just trying different things, and obviously this is the new experiment. And yeah, definitely like for a stream thing, I guess for me it's a little different because it's like yeah, when I used to stream a lot more frequently, now I don't really stream that much. I just do YouTube stuff for the most part. But when I used to stream a lot more frequently, like getting that consistent thing would be like a stressful thing. Especially like because when you hear about like the algorithm and that if you do this the algorithm is going to like screw you over and things like that,
Yeah.
like one of the things you hear there is like you have to have really consistent timings, right? So like you said, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, right? um so if something comes in the way of that, how does that is it pretty easy for you to reschedule it, or do you just like skip the stream, or how does that go
Well,
normally?
so far I've just been skipping the stream entirely.
Mm,
So sometimes I'll take a weekend break. I want to hitch a ride with a friend to go someplace else to see other people
mm,
for a weekend, like 4 days. I've done that like I think twice now, within the past 2 years. No, more than that. So I've skipped Saturday streams, and I've also sometimes took days off in order to go to somebody else's house uh, in order to spend the night, watch a movie, watch a show, and things like that. Yeah.
cool. um yeah, it seems like you're you seem somewhat able to like manage your energy levels pretty well as like a introverted person, right? Like how does that like how do you kind of manage that? Do you have any like I guess um I guess techniques or tips or whatever for like managing that energy as like someone who gets tired from social situations? And like
Yeah.
yeah.
So me as an introvert, I don't have much of a problem being around other people. I'm
Mm,
around a lot other people a lot. I
mm,
grew up with two older sisters, so I was around them a lot. Going to school, you're around a lot of people. I've
right.
been in situations like such as Boy Scouts or modernized nations in which like you need to be around a lot of people.
Mhm.
So like if you're an introvert who just being around other people, just like in their presence takes energy away from you, my tips aren't going to help you.
Right.
Uh, but for me, and maybe this means that I'm not as much of an introvert as other people, is what's draining is having to interact with people.
Right.
So what I've been able to learn just unconsciously, not unconsciously, but subconsciously, that's the
Mhm.
word, is to choose when I want to talk and pick those moments very carefully.
Right.
So maybe like one of the things that my friends could tell you about me is I don't talk much, but when I do talk, it's very meaningful.
Mm.
Um, and another tip is if you just like don't want to be there, just leave.
Right.
Um, tell people just out of courtesy, out of consideration that like, hey, I'm gonna go, just tired and whatnot. Do that. Don't be afraid to say no.
Mhm.
Um, so like this might actually be a problem for streaming because there were times in which I would get an invite to go on this panel,
Right.
and depending on how I'm feeling that day or whatever I'm thinking about what is going to be the next day, if it's later on, which usually it's not, I always get invites like a couple hours before.
Mhm.
Panel host, producers, do better, earlier notice, please.
Mm.
People have plans.
Right.
Um, I would have to say no sometimes because I'm just like I'm out of it. It's like I'm taking my break day. It's like it's a Sunday.
Mhm.
I I had like a really long stream the night before, and I'm just like out of it.
Right.
So I've had to say no. So in a lot of ways, being an introvert and Twitch streaming is really difficult
Mhm.
because you're not as outgoing or you're not as like a go-getter as other people, and sometimes you're just like not as excited to be there as other people.
Mhm. Right. I see. Uh, yeah, for sure. I think I'm probably also a bit of an introvert, though I think like I'm good at like one-on-one conversations, right? Or
Hmm.
I guess that's probably not accurate, like because you can be like an introvert with like good social skills. But
You mean to
anyway,
say that like you're more comfortable with one-on-one conversations?
yeah, and I don't get as exhausted as frequently. Um,
I
like for
think
the
the same
most
way.
part, yeah. Cool. Um, but yeah, so for me, I just decided like, okay, I can go on panels and stuff, but I can't like sit in front of a screen and just like talk for like to like an empty chat for like for like 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
So like I guess I feel like that takes a certain level of like tenacity and stuff like that.
Okay. So one way that I think about talking to an empty chat is
Mhm.
that uh instead of thinking about talking to nobody, think about talking to yourself.
Right.
So, something about introverts is that, and I'm not like an introvert expert. So how
Right.
about this? Okay, from my experience, I have a lot of thoughts,
Mhm.
and I also have a lot of opinions.
Right.
There's a lot that goes on in this brain.
Mhm.
So what just ends up happening is I've just become more confident and more comfortable in just letting stuff out.
Mhm.
So if I'm like reading a tweet, there could be nobody in my chat right now. Actually, I have no idea if somebody's in my chat right now because I don't look at my viewer count.
Right.
Makes me a little bit anxious
Mhm.
that like to see that people are there and to see that number go up and down. Huh. Yeah. But what I'm just doing right now, I'm just rambling. I'm going all over the place.
Mhm.
But that's how like I would get through talking to an empty chat, just starting your stream, nobody's really there, or like people are busy and other things. I could be reading an article
Right.
or a news article, and instead of just like reading to myself, I would read out loud. One, because I feel more engaged myself reading out loud. It just something that I took from school is when you read things out loud, you remember it more instead of
Right.
just reading it in your mind.
Mhm.
So I would do that for my own sake, but there's also the dual effect of I'm reading it for my chat if there's anybody there. And if nobody's there, then that's fine because I'm also doing it for myself.
Right.
So, uh, a lot of ways that I actually do think about the challenges of being a smaller streamer is to just like rethink, like just tweak a little bit of how you approach things instead of like thinking about it from how it benefits your audience. Maybe think about how does it benefit yourself.
Right.
Um, and probably like the the hardest thing for me is being able to blurt all of my thoughts out very coherently.
Mhm.
A lot of the times I slip on my words. A lot of the times I just have blanks and I have all these gaps.
Right. I see.
Or see, we know what I just did. I just elongated that or. That was a really long or.
Mhm.
Or
Yeah.
so then like I give myself time
To
in
think.
order to think about the next thing that I want to talk about. Uh huh.
Yeah.
So then there's also like speech issues. So like being a streamer is actually it's a lot to do. It's a lot to think about. It's not as easy as people make it out to be, I would say. Like there are people out there who are like, guys, streaming is so easy. You just press go and you do stuff. People are there in your chat. It's bumbling and you're getting money. You're running ads and like, oh, easy life, easy life. But that 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 might be really easy once you got it figured out. And I want to say that like once you got it figured out, like you're set. And you might
Mhm.
have some problems here and there, but you know how to solve them.
Right. I see. Um, yeah, that makes sense. That's cool. Um, so yeah, I guess this is a little bit unrelated, but it was also something that kind of came up in my mind. But like, so I guess you obviously, like you said, you wanted to go into international relations. Did you like just go into it out of like interest or out of like, okay, I want to do something internationally, so let's do international relations, or did you have like an idea of like what sort of job you wanted or what sort of career you want to start?
Yeah, so I just had a broad interest.
Mm.
Um, and what's really nice is in the beginning, I wanted to work for it because one, it was interesting,
Mm.
and two, I wanted to do something. So there was an outcome, right? The
Right.
process and the outcome, those two things aligned. We talked about that a little bit before.
Yeah.
What ended up happening in college is I just became way too interested in the broader subject.
Mhm.
And remember when I was talked about like the paths, the different
Yeah.
paths that I had to choose? I had a lot of difficulty picking because
Mhm.
I loved particularly two of them. I could have picked the third one, which was global economy, but I really could have picked all three and I would have been really satisfied because I
Right.
took classes that were under all three and I loved it. I just loved the subject. I just love politics, political behavior. How do countries behave? How do people behave? What do they do? I just love all of it.
That's nice.
So it's actually it's nice, but then the curse is well, when you gotta think about grad school, you gotta pick a specific program,
Right.
and some grad schools specialize in one particular area more than the other.
Mhm.
So you, I can't just be like, okay, let me take a master's in everything. I just can't do that.
Yeah.
That's what a bachelor's for, and I've done my bachelor's and I've loved it,
Mhm.
but it's actually been really tough thinking about a specialty um and actually thinking about a specific occupation that
Mhm.
I want to pursue
Right.
because like right now if you ask me the question because I'm still giving a lot of time to content creation
Mhm.
and not thinking that I have to move on, not just yet,
Right.
but once I do move on I have to confront this problem and what do I want to do, what do I want to specialize in, and further narrow down I guess like my career path.
Mhm.
Another thing that I could do is work in academia, in which I
Right.
study everything.
Yeah.
But I want to become a professor. Oh God, the one thing that would be good as a professor is if I had to teach a humanities class, I would teach philosophy and anime.
Cool. Yeah.
But right now, I feel like I could do everything, anything in politics. Like I have so many different paths,
Mhm.
and the huge problem is I have to pick one, and
Right.
they're all great.
I see. Um, do you feel like this is like a unique problem? Like this is like um one of the first times you've had to deal with like having trouble deciding on a specific thing, or do you think this is like an extension of a general problem, or like do you feel like you're generally like an indecisive person, or is it just here?
I think if I had to self-describe myself, I'm pretty decisive.
Mhm.
And but when I'm indecisive, I am incredibly indecisive. So it's either 0 or 100 in my
Right.
mind.
I
And
see.
what usually causes the 0 is lack of information
Mhm.
as well as lack of perspective.
Right.
If I'm completely dark about something, I'm completely unconfident of what I want to pick. So, one of the things for content creation is like, how do I deal with Twitter?
Right.
I've always been bad with social media. Zoomer, yes, but Facebook was not my thing. That's where like people were like my status for this and whatnot. I thought that was cringe. I did it sometimes
Hmm.
because it was fun once in a while, but like growing up in school, middle school, high school, that was out of not me.
Right.
And to this day, Twitter's also the same thing. It's not me, but everybody's on it.
Hmm.
And everybody's throwing their hot takes. Everybody's starting drama. Everybody's mudslinging at each other on that
Right.
platform. That's the social media Twitch politics.
Yeah.
Is Twitter, which is really weird because the number one platform for political news is Facebook.
Yeah.
But we're all on Twitter.
Hmm.
Um so I've had problems with Twitter and how do I want to manage that? What I want to do, and I because of that I made a lot of indecisions. Excuse me. I was really indecisive in what to do with the platform until I started getting consults from Kino,
Hmm.
and I'm part of her Patreon, and so we have like monthly consults, and she's a marketing expert.
Right.
So when it comes to that area, I have a lot of questions.
Hmm.
I have I need basically advice on what to think about things and whatnot, and she answers them, and she makes me feel more confident in my decisions, or like it makes me feel like she's guiding me in a direction that I have more confidence in.
Cool.
So like one part is lack of information,
Hmm.
and the other part is uncertainty,
Right.
which is for probably most related to my indecisiveness on which path to take when it comes to say like a grad program.
Mhm.
Uh I just don't know which one I would be more happy in.
Mhm.
And if they're all happy for me, then like how can I pick which one's the best for me? That's
Right.
the thing. And I don't know that factor. I
I
haven't
see.
really one thought about it. But it's also like really tough to pinpoint down what is the factor that's going to put one direction over the edge than the others.
I see. Yeah. Um, yeah, for sure. So it seems like there's some knowledge that, maybe you can get from like talking to other people, but there's also this other bit of knowledge which like is basically impossible to get until you actually experience
That's right.
the program, right? Um, yeah, I can see how that would be challenging. I think like obviously I don't know enough about grad masters in international relations to say it. But one thing which helped me for picking something in undergrad was just the idea that like, okay, even if I'm wrong about this, or even if I don't like it, I can switch, right? At least in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So I actually picked the college I'm in specifically because they give you like an extra year or something before you actually have to declare your major, and you can't switch anymore, basically. And that was part of the reason why, because I had trouble deciding on it.
That was
Uh,
probably a liberal arts college.
uh, yeah, yeah, basically. Uh,
I went to one as well.
cool. As you went through high school and college, you were pretty focused on like politics, right? So, whereas a liberal arts college, at least in my experience, they typically have you do like a wide array of different stuff, right?
Yeah.
So why did you decide that, and how was the experience there?
Ooh, why did I decide that? Well, did I have a decision? It's also a thing. So when I applied to colleges, I applied to a couple of them,
Mhm.
and the ones that I got in made me lead to choosing the school that I went to, which was SUNY Geneseo. And the reason why I picked it is because it was it gave me the best deal financially,
Right.
and it also had the department that I wanted.
Mhm.
And what kind of sucked about living in New York and the SUNY program is not a lot of colleges had a political science department.
Mhm.
And not a lot of them also had a political science and international relations department.
Right.
So Stony Brook had political science, but they didn't have an international relations.
Mhm.
So when it came to the financially good choices, I really only had one, which was
Right.
SUNY Geneseo.
Nice.
So I got into a couple other schools.
Mhm.
Fun fact about me: I applied to Harvard, didn't get in. Shoot your
Right.
shot. You got it. You
Yeah,
got
I
it.
mean, I
Uh-huh.
applied to Stanford, didn't get in, so
Yeah. Top of class. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But yeah, that's what made me choose the school that I went to.
Mhm. I see. Um, yeah, so I guess you weren't really looking outside of New York, or um,
I
yeah.
did look outside of New York, and it was under the advice of my guidance counselor.
Mhm.
But when it came to the money situation, I had to pay a lot out of my own pocket. I
Right.
wasn't getting a lot of assistance from the government.
Yeah.
And if I picked my university within my state, then I would have help from both my federal government as well as my state government.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay.
And it was also a
Yeah.
SUNY school.
Mhm.
So you know what? Probably a lot of people are wondering about like what is this SUNY program? It's a state school.
Right.
It's a state school. So it does get assistance as an institution from the government. So it tends to be cheaper in costs. So I got
Yeah.
into a couple of private schools,
Mhm.
but private schools are well
Expensive.
private, so they're going to be expensive, duh.
Yeah.
And I had no patience for wanting to take out thousands, tens of thousands of more loans,
Yeah.
just to go to a school in which I honestly didn't think was going to be much better than what I than the school that I went to eventually.
I see. Yeah. For me, since I came from India, obviously all of the like I don't have residency in any of the states, right? So I just forgot about that. Um, but yeah, I mean now I have residency, so it's a lot cheaper, which is good. I talked with some people about like their financial situation growing up and how that influenced them. So for you, how was that? Were you just from like a relatively like middle class family, or like upper class or lower class, or what?
Yeah, so how can I describe my family's financial situation? It was a roller coaster. It was very high, like very high middle class.
Mhm.
My family was able to move to Long Island from Flushing. They had a business and they were doing stuff. And at some point, it all came crashing down. And it just so happened that it came crashing down when I was just growing up.
I see.
So, um, my family has its own financial troubles. We're barely making out uh from some sources of income, but basically, the business fell apart. My father um had to leave the country in order to pursue I guess like how I would describe his dreams.
Mm-hmm.
So like me growing up, I didn't have my dad wasn't present for a while, for a
Oh,
long time. Um, I actually saw him last fall. He
right.
came back
Mhm.
uh, so he could join my sister's wedding.
Right.
Uh, but before that, I probably didn't see him for like a couple of years.
Oh, wow.
I don't think I actually saw him once during college.
I see.
I don't even remember the last time I saw him. So like there, so then there's that issues. Um, but like how has that affected me? Um, in a lot of ways, and I think this is like the consensus from the siblings because like my older sisters tell me the same thing
Hmm.
is that me growing up I've been more careful about money.
Mhm.
I'm not like this huge spender. And if I do spend, it's on stuff that like one, I feel like I absolutely need,
Mhm.
or two, it's stuff that like I want to actually use.
Right.
So probably like the most expensive things that I've been buying has been related to computers,
Right. Yeah.
whether it be my new computer and its parts, the monitor, this new microphone. Like I've been buying a lot of tech stuff, but like when it comes to clothes, I don't care about that.
Mhm.
My sisters and my parents, they're all about the purses and stuff,
Right.
and I'm just like, and I just look at them fawning over purses. I'm just like, seriously, a piece of leather?
Right.
That's what you value in terms of money? As that's like, yeah, but maybe I just like have different things that I prioritize when it comes to spending, but I don't see myself as like a huge spender.
Right.
Um, Nor do I see myself as like a person who likes to go out and pay for stuff. And maybe that's like a thing, a perk about being an introvert is I don't go out a lot.
Right.
So I'm not the person who like going out to bars every single day and buying 4 drinks a night. That's
Mhm.
like $15 per drink. Like that's fucking crazy, including tip. Okay, including
Yeah.
tip. Yeah, that's like you're going to be spending a lot. So I feel like I've been really careful about money. I also feel like I've been really humble. I've been humbled by I guess like appreciating money and not really like looking down on other people because of their finances. I think like one of my pet peeves of mine is when people look at somebody's financial situation and correlating that to like their intelligence or
Right.
correlating that to like their abilities or something.
Mhm.
Um, in a lot of ways, this has actually influenced me to liberalism or
Right.
like
Yeah.
to this thought in um, that like it's not we're not like a 100% meritocracy because every each individual's social environment is different, so there are different resources, and the best way to actually achieve equity or a closer become closer to a meritocratic society would be to provide those resources to people.
Right.
So like I'm a huge believer of universal basic income, Medicare for all, and like basically like a lot of programs that would help alleviate people from their problems of poverty, and get them to focus on things like maybe their own education, their own development, and how can they grow themselves as a person and become a functioning member of society instead of thinking about like, oh, well, it's just because they made different decisions.
Right. I see.
Pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. You know, that's pretty cringe.
Yeah. So it seems like your experiences kind of moved you away from that sort of very um I say like very like individualist sort of thinking, like very focused on like what you should have done or what you didn't do or whatever, to get into the position you are. And kind of more towards this idea of like, okay, there's a lot of different things which like impact people's well-being, and it's not just their like intelligence or the decisions they make, right? um but yeah. um yeah, I mean, I guess I'm sure you probably thought about this, doing debates on Twitch and stuff. Like, so I guess if you had to boil it down, what would you say that your like core values are, or what are like the basic things that you believe in at like the fundamental level?
The fundamental level on Twitch or just like myself?
Yourself, like your values and stuff.
Oh, my values. I'm a believer of democracy, equality. I'm basically just like, yeah, a basic lib.
I see.
Um, but I also believe in like rights and liberties as well as education. I think that's probably not education. Being informed, I think, is
Right.
really important. Because like when it comes to education, like I don't expect everybody to go into the education system.
Mhm.
Um, and nor do I want them to like become educated in say like political science. I mean, which it'll be great if everybody studied political science. You know what?
Right.
Maybe I would want to make that mandatory. No, I'm just kidding. That's a joke. Um, but what I think I want most people to do is to one, become informed with information, because the more informed that you are, the better it is at tackling problems.
Right.
And I think it's really important to have a lot of information when you like actually deal with political problems,
Mhm.
because you also have to consider a lot of factors,
Right.
and you have to consider a lot of different dynamics and how relationships work in the first place. What are the
Mhm.
trade-offs? It's really important to consider those things. But in order to get to that, I think it's really important for people to kind of have this uh ep- epistemic, is that the word? Maybe
Uh,
epistemic hubris,
right.
of like being able to critically think and have these like systems within like your own mind of how to approach a problem and how to break it down, how to do analysis, and where does it lead to.
Mhm.
And what's really lacking from a lot of the environment in Twitch politics is a lot of that is absent.
Mhm.
And
I see.
I don't want to believe, nor do I want to say, nor do I actually think this is the reason. Is that like people are just stupid?
Right.
I don't think that.
Mhm.
I think what is more so the problem is there is a trade-off between that kind of an approach to talking about politics on Twitch for more of the entertainment.
Right.
And before, this was really funny. You mentioned that, um, and I don't know if you were referring to me or to some other people, is that like people get disappointed by Twitch politics at first, or
Uh,
like maybe they
yeah.
get really excited at first, but then the more that they stay, they get disappointed. I was one of those people in that I was really excited about being able to talk about politics with people who I thought was like-minded,
Mhm.
and I'll possibly even make a career out of it.
Mhm.
And if I don't, then it's fun.
Right.
But what ended up happening is, I got massively disappointed, and people told me I was gonna get disappointed. People told me that like, "Oh, you can't save them, you can't change them, whatnot." Um, and what ended up happening is at some point I just changed my goals to, instead of doing this for other people, I do it for myself and I do it for my own community.
Right.
I do it for the people who want to watch me.
Mhm.
And there are a couple of people here and there that do watch me for the way that I do approach politics. With reason, with logic, with information, uh, all helped by my background and what I learned in college. So I continue to do that, and uh, people could like point out and say it's a failure. You're not actually doing anything. You're not making a dent. You're not growing. Look at what all these other people are doing. They're massively more successful than you. Like you're just like you're not even just like a shout in the darkness. You're a bug,
Mhm.
basically. Not that anybody has called me a bug, but I'm trying
I get
to
what you mean. Yeah.
put a metaphor into like actually how small my
Mhm.
contribution has been so far. Uh, but my thinking, my mentality right now is if I don't do it, nobody's gonna do it.
Right.
Or if I don't do it, then I'm just adding to the problem.
I
I'm
see.
just becoming a part of the problem,
Mhm.
and I find that unacceptable.
Right.
So like I should at least try. Now, of course, because of other reasons, I can't try forever because
Yeah.
I need to live. I need to eventually start paying the bills.
Right.
I need to start to eventually not find myself in my own poverty trap. So like I also have to balance it with that. So I do have like my own time limit. Um but I guess like the two decisions is, do I do something that would make me feel guilty but is really successful,
Mhm.
or do I do something that I'm not successful at, but I'm satisfied with it and I'm happy for myself and I'm not going to beat myself? I'm going to choose the latter. Now, there's another thing. If I were to choose the former, if I was to make the first choice, would I actually be good at it? No, I'll be terrible at it. I'm not. I think I'm a funny person. Okay, here and
Right.
there I crack jokes and whatnot. Okay, I think I'm a funny person, but I'm not like the type of funny nor the type of entertainer or presenter that would make it big on Twitch.
Right.
I feel like sometimes here and there, like I have my moments, but for the most part, how I do approach my content has been more on like the information, the serious side, the more the more like the civil stuff, I guess. Instead of, not to call anybody out in particular, not like the pro wrestling thing.
uh it seems like you're kind of coming to approaching like doing the work that you're doing um with a very with what I think is a pretty good goal, or a pretty like noble goal or whatever.
Mhm.
Which I think is nice. um
A lot of people say that.
yeah.
Everybody says that. I'm so noble. I'm so pure.
Yeah, I mean, okay, let me think of how to say this without being like I don't mean this in like a
You're not
like
being
rude.
condescending, by the way. You're not being rude.
No, like I know what I'm about to say. It's gonna sound rude.
Oh,
um,
continue.
okay. But like you say you wanted to be like a like I don't know. It sounds like some of the stuff which you're talking sounds a lot like a very safe answer, I guess. Which doesn't necessarily mean it's not correct. It's possible that you're genuinely like that, right? Um,
Safe answer.
yeah, like just to contrast, for example, for me, the reason I'm doing this stuff is just because I like to talk to people and it's fun and yeah, and I mean like obviously there's also this aspect of like humanizing people in online politics and things like that. But very much so my reason is more like um just like it's basically I enjoy it, right? So like I'm generally someone who's a lot more focused on like the action and enjoying the action itself as opposed to the outcome. So yeah, so I don't know, I guess like
I had to guess what you're
yeah.
trying to say to me.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
You're saying that I am giving selfless answers to your questions,
Yeah, basically.
but I do I think I did mention that there or I hinted at like the more selfish part of
Mhm.
what I'm doing. How about I elaborate on that? Okay.
Sure, yeah, go.
When I was in high school, I discovered Twitch.
Mhm.
I discovered gaming on a platform as a career,
Right.
and that's when I started streaming. I had a laptop, I had a webcam on that laptop. I was playing League of Legends. Sometimes I was streaming League of Legends.
Right.
Like the hope was there is like, hey, and I've been a gamer ever
Mhm.
since I was a kid, and I've also like other things loved anime. So like I've had a lot of passions. I have like both my hobbies passions as
Right.
well as my professional passions.
Right.
Um and it it all started out as a hobby, just something that I do here and there. Wasn't really being serious. Sometimes I would like take it more seriously than before. Like I would take like one step out of the many thousands I actually need to take in order to get up there. Like say like investing into a microphone. I had a job back then and during college, so I had money. And I was like, okay, well, what do I want to spend it on? It's like, oh boy, how about I buy a Blue Yeti?
Mhm.
Um, and like increase that quality
Cool, yeah.
because like I find enjoyment. Like I think when it comes to hobbies, and paying for the hobby is that like when you improve on your hobby, then you're also going to improve on yourself. And I did improve on myself by like getting things like a better webcam,
Mhm.
or instead of like using my laptop webcam, or a microphone. So then the quality of audio is like a lot better.
Right.
Um, so then just to boil it down, the selfish reason is I don't want to like I don't want to go to grad school as well. Like that's more loans, that's
Mhm.
more time in the classroom. I don't see I get stressed writing papers. I was
Right.
not able to finish my honors thesis paper. One because I was procrastinating. Two because I had like low confidence in myself
Mhm.
because for homework, I would read these articles. I'm like, oh my god, this is such wonderful writing. And then just like, okay, it's honors thesis time. I qualified. I had an advisor and everything. But when I started writing, I'm like, okay, this is completely different than what I'm used to reading. So
Right.
then I would also have low confidence issues. And then the third thing is COVID. It's like, okay, well, instead of actually writing my honors thesis in college and having to go to my professors in real time for advice, I would be stuck at home doing it.
Mhm.
And having conversations through Zoom. Like that's just unideal.
Yeah, the environment
Uh
is just not the best. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So well, the point is I also have like pressure. I also feel not adequate when it comes to like writing papers, and that's gonna be like the thing to do in grad school. It's gonna be research focused. It's
Mhm.
also gonna be very paper focused.
Right.
There's like a master's thesis at the end.
Hmm.
If I couldn't do a bachelor's thesis at the end of my undergrad, how can I do a master's thesis? Like that's kind of just like blown away. In a lot of ways, this is like Dunning Kruger in that I'm like at a point in my expertise where anything above me is just like so beyond me. Maybe I've become too humbled, and this has made me very unconfident in myself. So
Hmm.
then, I also am like pretty the aspect of not of like having a 9 to 5 job, Monday to Friday. It's just it destroys me.
I
I
see.
hate work. Yeah, that and if I could instead do content creation, that would be fucking awesome. So that's the more selfish reason.
I see.
Yeah.
Um,
Is that what you're looking for?
yeah, I mean, I didn't like ask you for to like make fun of you for it or anything. It's just like, um,
No, it's good.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
like,
I'm open about this stuff too. It's not like I'm hiding it.
yeah, of course. Um, yeah, I think like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I can understand that these sorts of things can be pretty um tough and pretty scary. Like the masters and going into a master's program, that is. Especially when you feel like you feel inadequate in the way that you do. Um, and yeah, I guess like when I think about like doing a 9 to 5 job, I mean, I did that a little bit for like internships and stuff, but um, yeah, I think I've talked to a lot of people who have trouble with that sort of just traditional schedule. And yeah, I think like working your way out of that can is definitely a valid path. Because at the end of the day, it's not for everybody. And
Yes.
yeah, I think
As I said before, I have a time limit on some things.
yeah,
So eventually I'm going to have to suck it up.
right,
And the hope is that whatever job that I do choose that is 9 to 5, it is something that is very fulfilling. It is something that I'm very motivated at. And I hope it lines up that way. But there's no guarantee.
of
I mean,
course,
like,
yeah.
even right now, my part time job is not something that I want to do.
Mhm.
And even if it's like a couple of hours a day, it's grueling. It's grueling work for me.
Mhm.
Very robotic, very repetitive. Not something that I want to continue on doing.
Mhm.
Uh, Now, like if I think about doing that, but make it a full time job, my world's ended. I'm
Right.
done. I've just become like a cog in the machine,
Mhm.
emotionless, just like just in the machine running. That's it,
I see.
and that's devastating to me.
Yeah, yeah, I can see how something like that would be pretty difficult. It seems like your parents were also kind of more of an entrepreneurial type, right? Like with that business, your dad going off to follow his dreams and whatnot. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah.
and like in a lot of ways, though, I think that's also dissuaded me a little bit from the business side of things because it, it's it's what they did that ended that led to my family ended up to where it is,
Right.
and maybe has like affected me on kind of like being allergic to that side
Yeah.
of because like it boomed for them,
Mhm.
and that probably has affected me in some way subconsciously.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a part of you which is kind of inherently this type of person who doesn't want to just like do like a 9 to 5 job, who wants to, do something different, a bit something unique,
Yeah,
and
it's
follow
the
your
dream.
own path. And there's also this part of you which like recognizes the problems with that sort of lifestyle and wants to have some level of stability as well. Um, just because of obviously seeing how that has impacted you and your family. Um, and yeah, I think I can totally empathize with that. It sounds like it was probably a pretty tough situation, and I assume to a certain extent it still is. And it seems,
Mm, no, I don't want to describe it as tough because there's definitely a lot more situations out there that are way tougher.
yeah.
I still would consider myself very privileged.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
this is in part because of, well, one, where I'm still living.
Right.
Two, my upbringing, the type of schools that I went to. The fact that I went to college in the first place
Mhm.
is something very privileged that not a lot of people are able to do. Not a lot of people are able to get a bachelor's degree,
I see.
just a bachelor's degree. So I still view myself as being very privileged, as yes, like everybody's going to have their difficulties, right?
Hmm.
But for me to describe it, or for, like for you to describe it as tough, is not appropriate, in my opinion.
Okay. Was it like I'm okay? So I guess objectively, it probably wasn't uh, tough. Like, but I assume for you at the time, and it was like a difficult change, right? Um,
What being a difficult change?
uh, oh wait, sorry. So from my understanding, your parents had this business which was kind of,
Yeah.
going well, and then at some point in your childhood, like, the
Oh, it
business
was when I
collapsed.
was like I was so small I don't even remember it.
Oh, okay,
Like
I see.
like see what's actually really fascinating is all these things I learned about later in my life.
Right, I see.
So it it was like I was growing. It felt like I was growing up and nothing's changed.
Mhm.
And then later on, I'll tell like, no, there's our family was actually like really tumultuous, and I was like, crap. I was like, I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah,
None of it, none of it affected me.
yeah, I see. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, yeah.
So, like for my sisters, they had to experience the change.
Mhm.
I didn't, because I
Right,
just don't remember it.
right. I see.
The only change that really has affected me is the absence of my dad.
Mm.
It's because the business failed here at home that he had to move elsewhere in order to do other things, in order to pursue other opportunities. That's really the only thing that has like been the huge effect on me in terms of like the change. Because I remember my dad being there and then my dad not being there.
Mhm.
But like when it comes to the change in family finances, no, that's completely it felt like nothing's changed.
I see.
Me growing up.
Yeah. Um. Okay. Um. I see. Okay. Um. Yeah. Um. Yeah. I guess we've for the last part of the conversation I've kind of jumped all over the place a little bit, but
Oh yeah, it's gotten really personal.
oh yeah, I mean, um yeah, of course, if there's anything which you feel is you're like uncomfortable with sharing, that's
Oh
totally
no,
fine. Okay.
no.
Um
I would tell you,
yeah, cool.
but
Um
I don't think anything's like actually off limits.
mhm.
Maybe I'll regret it later. Who knows? I'll tell you.
Yeah, I mean, um I should uh, I should mention this on stream as well, but like later on if you regret anything, you can message me and let me know. I told you about that in messages, but yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Um yeah. Um, but other than that, I don't have any other questions. Do you have anything you want to, anything else you want to say, or anything you want to ask?
No, that's a wrap. That's a wrap.
All right. Thanks for coming, and thanks for having the interview.
Yeah, no, this was really fun, and I enjoyed it.
Thanks. I'm glad to hear that. I'll see you around then.
All right, see you too. Bye.